I have afterlife beliefs.
think
Ocean, all I think she's asking is what context must you divulge this information? Like, when are you supposed to bring out this information? Like, when is it just for you to actually bring out it, and when is it wrong for you to hold it in?
But what's more
I
surprising?
think it's an asshole belief to hold in the first place.
No, I agree. I think
If you're gonna walking around and having interactions with people when you think they're gonna be burning in hell afterwards, and then you're smiling and fucking cordial with them, I think that's incredibly dishonest.
Well, I mean,
I think that they deserve to fucking burn, right?
Danny and I went out, right? I know what his belief system is. I would be fucking stupid if I didn't already believe that he. I mean, he's a Baptist, right? Like, what do Baptists believe? I mean, it's like, why does he have to volunteer that when it's kind of entailed in his belief system, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's implied based on.
Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because you'll hear many Christians that don't hold that. You'll hear many Christians that won't hold that.
But I will agree with Ocean too in saying that there is something that creates like a block of communication when someone I know believes that I'm going to burn in fire and is being really nice to me. I think that there's a it's kind of a.
That's the part that I think is dishonest.
I still think
someone thinks their God should send you to burn,
so
and then they're nice and cordial to you.
Should say before they get into any conversations with anyone else.
I don't think they should be nice to people and smiley to people that they think should burn in hell.
Why?
I think that's dishonest.
That doesn't really make sense.
Well, you think that we're not good enough for your deity.
False.
No, I'm not good enough for
That's
my
not what
deity.
the Christian belief is.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You're creating a
No, it
straw
isn't.
man.
Wait. Layla, actually, he's not creating because you do believe he's not good enough because you just said you're not good enough. So you're implying that
No
you
one
also
is good enough, right?
Right,
No,
exactly.
No, not unless you spread around on the coattails of Jesus Christ, right?
No, you see, look at you. You're being emotional now. The implication, right? Here is
a conversation about whether or not someone should burn eternally, and he's saying I'm being emotional about it.
Are you not being emotional?
If you don't believe it, why
do
does it matter?
Do you think that an emotional response is appropriate when someone is saying you deserve to burn for all eternity?
Well, I think in the context,
let's just discuss that belief as to whether or not there should be an emotional response.
But if you don't believe it, why does it matter to you?
No, I don't believe it. But if someone's going to be saying that, like, if someone honestly believes that this is what should happen to me, yeah, I'm going to be pissy with them, right?
Well, I mean, it should happen to me too. So should I be pissed at myself?
No, but you don't. You think that you've got the loophole. It's not going to apply to you, right? You've got the special secret key to get around it.
Well, no, you do too. It's not just me. Like, again,
you're believing something stupid in order to get there, and it's
So are you saying that when you meet somebody for the first time and shake their hand, you should automatically relinquish your beliefs? Is that what I'm understanding?
I think that he shouldn't be cordial with people that aren't Christians because he thinks that they should burn in hell.
No,
like that's okay.
Well, wait a minute.
When he's nice and cordial with people that are going to burn hell and smiling and friendly with them and gets
all I'm saying is that hipsters are just putting up a front.
Trusting that person. If I get into any situation in which if I trust hipsterish with anything, then I'm trusting somebody who believes that I ought to burn.
I mean, this is silly, right? Listen,
what do you mean this is silly?
Because I'm about to explain it to you, right? So if a patient, right, who is going to inevitably die from a disease, right, who refuses medical treatment, right, and the only way that they could receive treatment is in a way where they would have to voluntarily receive it. I couldn't force it upon the treatment upon them, right? And if they have already denied, if they already rejected the offer of me giving medication, right? Should I still be freaking out and tell them you're going to die? You're going to die. Oh my gosh, are you stupid? Are you going to die? You're going to die.
There's a difference in that situation. Does the doctor think that the patient ought to die?
Right?
No, it's incredibly different because there's an ought. Does the doctor think the patient ought to die?
Yeah, well, he's going to die. He ought to die in the sense that he should die considering the situation. The situation, he has cancer, therefore he should die. You should expect that.
Yeah, the doctor in that situation would think that the patient ought to die because he's refusing medical treatment. He's not taking.
So he thinks he deserves death.
You're just conflating. You're just conflating.
Yeah, that is not. Yeah, the doctor does not think that he ought to die. That's ridiculous.
Well,
And they don't want you to burn in hell either. They're not hoping you burn in hell.
No, they do believe you ought.
No, they believe you ought.
If you don't repent
God
of your
doesn't
sin.
want you. God doesn't want you to go to hell. Okay,
Well,
that's
they
just
didn't have to
by
fucking send
necessity.
people to hell then.
No, you.
But you
he
think
doesn't say
that?
anyone
But
to
you
hell.
It's
think
not
that,
about you
but
wanting me,
think that,
hipster. It's about the
but you
fact
think
that you think I ought
ultimately
to.
that it's
No.
deserved.
It's just by necessity. It's like you have sin is like a spiritual disease, right? That demands a cure, right? In Christianity, this is the case, right? Sin is a disease that needs a cure, cured by Christ, right? Christ is the medication, right? So it's not that God is condemning you; it's that there's something wrong with you spiritually, right? And you need Jesus Christ, right? So and the same with you. There's something wrong with me. Sticking to the analogy, I've received a medication that is the sacrifice and the atonement of Christ. So I am cured, right? We don't look at this as that God hates you. And
hipsterish though. The difference is that when if you and I are let's say Ocean is an anti-vaxxer, right? And I got the flu shot.
And a what?
Anti-vaxxer. Let's say Ocean is an anti-vaxxer.
Okay.
Okay. So
First,
I get the flu shot. I get the flu shot, and Ocean doesn't, and he gets sick, right? I don't then think that Ocean deserves to get the flu. I just wish that he was more sensible, or sensible enough to get the flu shot. But you ultimately think that he deserves what he's going to get.
I mean, okay, I might bite that bullet, but I mean, I think the thing is that we have a moral. There's our current state in our nature that basically there's something wrong morally speaking, right? We are sinful, right? And yes, as a result of our sin,
you're begging the
we
question.
are damned, right? I mean, God. Am I saying that you should get that we are all sinful and deserve punishment? Yes, I'm saying that, right? But I'm just saying that there's a solution, right? The Christian says there's a solution, right? And you're refusing the solution because you're on an account that is stupid, right? And that's your unbelief. I can't force you to
What's the solution?
You're telling me I can live a good life. I can do everything right, help as many people as I can. But just the simple fact that I don't believe in your God, I deserve to still be punished.
No, good life. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. No one lives good.
No. It's you deserve to be sent to hell, even if you are a positive force in the world, because you mastered.
I don't know what it means to be. What does it mean to be a positive force in the world? I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
Never hurting, never trying to hurt people, always trying to help people when you can.
If the Christian, remember, we're doing an internal critique of Christianity, right? So the idea is this: if the purpose, if what it means to be a functional human being is to know God, okay, then you're not fulfilling your function.
Right. So no matter what I do, no matter how good I am to the people around me, it doesn't matter as long as I don't believe in God.
Well, because in Christianity, right, the purpose is to know God, to have a relationship with God.
Right, exactly.
Right?
So it doesn't matter how good I am, how good of a person I am.
As far as your,
in your worldview, it only matters how God of a person I am.
Well, no.
Like you can do no sin except for masturbate one time, and you deserve to go to hell, burn for all eternity, right?
Well, if you sin one time, are you perfect?
See?
No.
What?
The answer is no. Right? And here's the deal. Why would a perfect being allow anything that's perceived as imperfect to be amongst him in a direct way like you would have in heaven?
I don't think that there's a perfect being anyway. I think the idea of a perfect being is absurd.
No, that's fine. That could all be true, but we're doing
Also, just saying, why would a perfect being do this? I can say, well, why would a perfect being punish these insignificant
because he's perfect. He's absolutely justful, right?
Right. He's absolutely justful. He's absolutely fucking perfect. He wouldn't do that to you.
No, hold on a second. Hold on.
He would.
No, he wouldn't. See, that doesn't get us anywhere.
Yes, he would.
Yes, he
Hold on a second. Hipster, that's a contradiction. I mean, if
No,
he's
it's not.
absolutely justful, and you deserve this punishment, and yet he gives you mercy by not giving you this punishment, then he is not
No, the
absolutely
punishment is
justful.
dealt. The punishment is already dealt, right? But it's not the punishment is atoned. Jesus takes the punishment.
Do you deserve?
For
Do you
him to
deserve
be
hell?
what
Hipster, do
I
you deserve
do,
hell?
but Jesus
And
takes
you're not going to get hell, right?
Okay, let him
Hipster?
explain. There's like 5
Okay.
against 1.
Here's the idea, right? That for God to be inconsistent with, like, you know what you're saying, for there to be a contradiction, there would be no punishment, right? That is where I would draw the line in there being a contradiction. But the idea of the doctrine of atonement, right, is basically something. It goes something like this: that instead of me taking the punishment, an absolute just God demands punishment, right? In Christianity, the punishment is given to Jesus. Jesus takes on the punishment.
Hipster.
Right? So,
Hipster. Is it a suspension of justice when one deserves something but does not get that punishment?
no, it's not.
So when a murderer doesn't go to jail for murder, that is not a suspension of justice.
That's a false equivalence, right? Because in this case,
So how's it a false equivalence?
Because if you're trying to make an analogy with the murderer, right, that means someone else goes to jail instead of the murderer, right? Someone is being punished, right? So
Right, but justice is only enacted when the person who's responsible for the injustice is punished.
That's false.
And
I
you're
reject that.
You do, really. So if you really think that in a fair system of justice, that if I stole from you or murdered your significant other, that it would be just for my lawyer to say, I'll take the punishment, you'd be okay with that? That's okay for you?
Yeah, as long as the judge or the one that the judge or the system of law or whatever is considered to be, you know, the origin of justice is okay with that, yes, then that's just.
Okay, that's the bullet you have to bite. That you think that the current system of justice is lacking, and that you think there should be an option for random strangers or anybody else to take the punishment for other people. That's the bullet.
As long as whatever the origin of justice, the absolute sense of justice is okay with that, then yes. Right? So for instance, right,
that's
if you owe me $10, if you owe me $10, right, I am the person that decides what is just in this case, right? If you owe me $10 and Dio says, I'll pay the $10, as long as I say that's okay, that pays for your debt, then that's okay. Because I'm the one that determines that. And similarly,
I think you're fucking delusional.
Isn't he just saying if it was just, it'd be just?
No. If God said, or God perceived as Jesus as atoning for our sin, meaning that he took the punishment, as long as he's satisfied with that, then it's just.
So it's just arbitrary?
No, it's essential to God's nature. It's fixed. It's not arbitrary.
What? Neat, bro. What's central to what?
Seems logical, right?
That there's God possesses the property of being just. So whatever he considers to be just.
Why do you say God possesses the property of being just? Are we just taking that as some kind of given? Or are we assuming that, or what?
God is essentially loving, just, kind.
Have we established that, or are we just?
No, wait. When Hipster went into this, he said
we're giving him the benefit of the doubt for a second.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Good.
We'll just,
No, that's good. So as nobody else gets hung up on that. Okay, so and given that, what?
Well, because God possesses the essential property of being just, right? Since he considers, and then I think that follows that necessarily God could only perceive when Jesus took our punishment, that he can only perceive it as something that would satisfy our sin, or our demand for punishment, right? Or our what's it called? Guilt, or that would be something that would exonerate us.
Wait, why?
Yeah. because he considers it to be so, right? He's the indicator. He expresses that in his utterances and his revelation.
Oh, could you start that over? Okay, given that God possesses this nature of being just, he could only perceive Jesus being
Yeah,
murdered.
that's to say that it's not arbitrary, right? It's not like
punished.
God randomly decided, okay, yeah, what you did, Jesus, was fine. You know, now I guess that will do it, right? No, that because of this essential property of justice that God possesses, he would necessarily find what Jesus did as sufficient for atoning for our sins.
What did Jesus do? What is that referring to? What did Jesus do?
Is this JJ?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you're here late, but
A little bit.
The idea is that, you know, he died and resurrected, right? So he basically took the sin of humanity, died and died.
Yeah, I know that story. I know that story,
Right.
but what were you referring to? God would necessarily what? Think that what Jesus did was just?
What Jesus did was sufficient for atoning our sins, for our sins.
Because God did it. God let it happen, so it's just. He sees it as just, therefore it's just.
Well, this is all along the line of whatever happens is just.
Wait a
Because
minute,
God
I just realized
lets everything
something.
happen.
Hold on,
Right?
I just realized something.
Right, Danny?
Hold on a second. I
This
realized
better be
something here.
fucking revelatory, Seth.
I'll get real mad about it. But I mean, Hipster was saying
It's like
that,
divine command theory with justice.
No, it's worse than that. Look, I just realized something. Nobody else realized, I don't think, until right now. That Hipster is saying that it's okay as long as the party that was harmed agrees that somebody else can pay for the toll. Like somebody else can come in and pay your debt. That's fine. But that's really strange considering that under that, the reason that we think that that's generally okay is because the party that's harmed gets to decide how much recompense or whatever they need, right? They can just wash their hands of it, right? If I bet Hipster $10 that I can beat him in Tekken 7 and he loses, I could either say that somebody else can pay that $10 or I can say, you know what, it was a fun game, you don't owe me anything. That's a weird thing that he doesn't think that that's a possibility.
That's a very good point, but you're forgetting that when you harm a human being, right, the reason why that's a problem in the first place is because that human being is created in the image of God, right? So it's like this. I wouldn't equate us to God's pets in all regard, but it would be there. You could make a comparison, right? Where if a cat harmed another cat, right, and the owner, right, the owner owns both cats, right, and then the owner decides what should happen, right? So because really it's offending him that one of the cats is attacking the other cat, right? It's not offending the cat itself.
Right, and the owner can just wash his hands of it too, right? You're saying that if the owner thinks it's okay if somebody else comes in and pays a debt or is punished, that should be okay. And we generally instinctually think that's okay because the person that's harmed is the person that gets recompense, right? Who needs to be made whole. Well, that person doesn't need to be made whole at all. He could just wash his hands of it. He could say, you know what? I think that you already suffered enough in your anguish or whatever, and I'm just going to forgive you, right? The person who's harmed can just forgive. There does not need to be any recompense to begin with in that scenario.
Okay, well, I don't want to interrupt. Did you finish? Okay, so the idea is this: that I don't think God there's some property or some characteristic or attribute of God, that basically made it to where He didn't decide to wash His hands like that. Right? There's a property that God possesses in His nature to where He demands it. He demands punishment. He can't just, consider it okay, right? And I think that's evident. That what it would explain that is because He does have this essential property of being just, right? That punishment needs to happen.
Okay, so I see a giant gaping hole in this. So God's demand punishment leads me to believe that He is a vengeful being. How can a vengeful being be perfect? Like, from the get-go, this argument has been flawed.
I think you're conflating.
And what do we do with gaping holes?
Stick dicks in them, usually.
I think spit in them.
I think you're confusing vengeful for being just, right? When a judge hands out a sentence to a person that even may have wronged him, it doesn't matter, right? That is not an act of vengeance. That's an act of justice.
Yes, it is an act of vengeance. Justice and vengeance are one and the same. In order for you to, yeah, but let me finish the sentence.
What's the difference? Wait,
in order
this
for
might
you
be
to
more fun
taste
if you.
justice, right? You need to have some sort of will to actually want it, being vengeance or be it revenge. Neither of these are positive emotions, but they are necessary in order for the justice to be a thing. Because if no one cared about the crime being committed, why would there be a need for justice? Why would there be a need for punishment? You have to want to get your own back, or want society to get its own back on these wrongdoers in order for this to be even a discussed topic. So
yeah, I don't really understand your argument for why they're one and the same, but one of the vast
what?
Wait, what makes them different?
No, hold the fuck up. What makes
what's the difference?
Okay, the difference when you're talking about vengefulness, you're really talking about a sort of punishment that's dealt apart from the one that's responsible for dealing the punishment, who's actually responsible for dealing for the justice. So, for instance,
what?
No, we're not going to give you that one. Hold the fuck up. Explain the gibberish that just came out of your mouth.
I wasn't done, right? I'm going to give you.
It doesn't matter if you were done. Go backwards and explain that shit.
Okay, I'll re-explain it. So the idea is that a vengeful act is an act in which a party who punishes another party, but the party that punishes is not the actual one who's responsible for dealing out the punishment, right? So
where did you get that from?
Responsible?
Where'd you get that from?
Responsible. Who determines who's responsible?
I'm trying to give you who determines that. Well, inevitably God does, right? So, but we can actually.
But we're all just God's instruments, though.
In a sense, yeah. But the idea is that
in a sense that I just used it.
If you don't want to, that's fine. If you don't want to have the conversation because you're not letting me talk, right?
No, I do want to have the conversation.
Okay, well, just let me know when you're done.
I'll fill in the gap real quick, but I think that a lot of this is kind of funny, because if you have Jesus as the Son of God, who's an infinite God, and then he's accepted as the sacrifice, and it's an infinite sacrifice, for some reason that doesn't automatically forgive everybody, even if they don't accept it.
No,
it's a gift.
I don't see how you have justice without vengeance.
Well, no, hold on a second. Think about it for a second, Jovo. Because if he's an infinite God, and the infinite God sacrificed himself, then the rewards of that sacrifice should be infinite.
Oh no, I agree with you. I agree with you. I was just talking about hipsters.
So,
I don't see how you can have justice without vengeance.
You're making assertions, right? You're asserting.
The Christian says we're making assertions.
You just gave a weird ass definition for vengeance.
No. So let me explain to you, Ocean, why it's an assertion. Here's what you're asserting. Without giving an argument, you have said that because God is infinite, that therefore, right? That therefore, that the atonement is infinite in a sense, that it covers everyone, right? That's an assertion. Let me hear the argument.
What? Argument for what? I'll give you argument. What argument for what though?
So the idea is that because if an infinite being, an infinite God, sacrifices himself in an effort to atone for something, why is it therefore a sort of infinite atonement in which would cover everyone, whether they rejected the atonement or not, right? So I don't see how that.
Because he's infinite and omnipotent and omnipresent.
That's not an argument.
What do you mean it's not an argument? That's directly that is the answer to what you're asking.
You started with the premise, right? You're saying
right, and therefore it follows that it doesn't matter whether or not the subjects refuse the sacrifice.
I still do not hear an argument, Ocean. Premise one. Let me repeat to you what your premise one was: that God is infinite, right? And then premise two, that if God were to sacrifice himself, therefore, I'm just going to follow with the conclusion as well, that God sacrificed himself, and if God sacrificed himself, then therefore, right?
Therefore, the sacrifice is infinite.
is infinite, right? So you just gave, when I asked for the argument, you just restated premise 1.
Right, because you were contradicting premise 1.
No, well, premise 1 was God is infinite. I'm not contradicting. What
Right.
did I say?
As soon as you're saying that God's sacrifice is limited, then it's no longer infinite. You're trying to limit his sacrifice by saying that it doesn't apply to some people.
No.
Then it wouldn't be infinite anymore.
That's so. What a bizarre claim. Listen to yourself, right? You're saying
the Christian saying bizarre claim. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. You're saying because that's like saying because an infinite being made.
Is everybody else following what I'm saying?
Yeah, just fine.
This is the argument for Arminianism, basically, as well as universalism.
Yeah, it's a crappy argument. You haven't given an argument, actually. You just get a crappy claim.
It's just a conclusion coming from premises. It's definitely an argument. It goes with the claims that are used in Christianity about the infiniteness of God, and then follows through with saying, here's the consequences of an infinite God making a sacrifice. Then the consequences of the sacrifice are then infinite. Which means that if you limit it, God is no longer omnipotent.
Non sequitur, right? It doesn't follow, and you haven't demonstrated.
How is it a non sequitur to say if you limit God, he's not infinite?
You haven't given me an argument.
It's an identity issue.
You can't limit infinity.
Well, I'd still like to know how the hell you enact any sort of justice without some sort of vengeance.
What? Oh. Did he leave? He was doing well.
Why did he leave?
He was doing okay.
Oh, no,
I think he was on mobile.
I think he was on.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got a call. I have to leave in a few minutes. I have to leave in a few minutes. But here's the idea.
You'll be back later, right?
Maybe. I have school tomorrow too. So, but the idea is this, right? You're saying that
he's got to eat his veggies.
Your claim is something like because God is infinite, or God is for him to become finite, then therefore he's not infinite, right? So that doesn't follow, right?
What?
In what way does that not
mean?
follow? That seems perfectly fucking logical.
Tell me how. Give me an argument.
You literally said
right. No. People, allow me. Okay, so
go for it.
Right. Have a concept of infinite. Now make it limited in some way, shape, or form. Please.
Oh yeah. So take the number 5. Is 5 finite?
That's not.
What?
Take concept of infinity, endless.
Right.
Incalculable. Now make it finite.
Take the number 5. 5 is finite.
Yeah, but
take the number 5. 5 is finite. Take the number 5. 5 is finite, right? Now, 5 is a finite number within infinity, right? So if in the same way that
fundamentally misunderstand infinity. Now go look up the actual definition of the word and come back.
The idea is that when God is infinite in the sense that he, in his omnipotence, right? Like God exists everywhere. That would include the current time, right? He would exist in time. So he has properties in both space, time, and reality, right? Space and time, and he exists atemporally, right? So therefore, you could have an infinite being existing in a finite way, right? Whether it's a manifestation like the ones that we saw in the Old Testament, or whether it's Jesus, right? So, and also, can an all-powerful being, you would think that he could make himself limited if he wished to, which he did through Jesus, right?
Sounds like you're just rejecting the law of non-contradiction.
You're making a shitload of fucking assertions.
Oh, no, here's the argument, right? Can a all-powerful being limit himself?
No, because then he would not be all-powerful. It is the conundrum age-old. Can God make a rock that he cannot lift?
Well, I don't. First of all, he wouldn't do that, right?
All right, yeah, but that's not the question. Can
why is relevant.
Shot himself in the foot.
God cannot lift.
That's a logical contradiction. That's different, right? No, the idea is that
not in any way, shape, or form. If he cannot make a rock that he cannot lift, Therefore, he is not all powerful. If he can make a rock he cannot lift, he is still not all powerful.
I made that argument like a week ago. It doesn't work.
Yeah, but it's not a very good argument. It really isn't, right?
No, it's not.
You can just say
it's not
can,
the
but
greatest
doesn't.
argument, but it's better than any of these.
That's like saying, can God create a square triangle, right? Can God
It's a
create
fine
square
argument.
triangle? That's the same. Can God make a square triangle? No, because he's bound by the rules of logic, right? And if a being, can an all-powerful being be bound by anything? Yes.
I don't think you should say that he's bound by the rules of logic.
Yeah, you would want to say that he's non-contingent, and it seems like he would be contingent on the laws of logic in this case.
That's going to be a problem.
Well, no, but the idea is that God can limit himself. He's limited by himself. He limits himself, right? He's only
Then he wouldn't be bound by the laws of logic.
How does God limit
the
himself?
laws of logic are ideas in God's mind, right? But yeah, because I'm a concept.
No.
Well, you're not familiar with conceptualism, then. But
I'm familiar.
Well, then they're really not transcendent. If that's the case, they're really not transcendent.
He told Jack he's not familiar with something.
I'm totally.
We don't agree. We don't agree on what it means to be all powerful. Then, right?
Well,
Maybe
can
your
God
definition, not all powerful, right?
Can God commit suicide?
Let him finish.
Yeah. Can God commit suicide? Well, no, he wouldn't have the desire to commit suicide.
Wait a minute.
Why not?
If he wouldn't have the desire to do it, then there's something that's going to be true in all possible worlds, right?
It seems like, yeah.
So in no world could he actually do it, right?
Right.
But you and I can commit suicide, right?
Right.
So in what sense? So in that sense, we're actually more powerful than God, right?
Yes.
No, that's silly.
Correct.
That's so silly because
that's correct. That's correct.
You can do something God cannot.
No.
Yep.
Let me tell you. That's like if I just got a new car, right? My old car blew smoke, right, and had dents. My new car doesn't do that. Just because my old car can blow smoke and stall, does that make it a more powerful car? That just because it
has the ability. It has the ability to do something that God can't do. That's what's meant by power.
Yep.
Oh, I don't. Then I disagree. What it mean? I disagree. Maybe I have a different concept of power than you do.
What concept of power do you have?
We would all say. So, would you really say, Jack, that my old car is?
Wait, what's your concept of power?
Well, I don't really have it. I don't really well understand.
I think a car that can do two things, rather than one that can do only one of those two things, is more powerful.
So you think that a car that works 100% of the time is not a greater car than a car that only works 50% of the time?
It's not a question of it not working. It's a question of what capacities it has. Right?
The capacity to not work, like it doesn't move, right? The capacity to
suicide,
not move.
Suicide is not working.
Danny, my bad.
The question is, right, you have the ability to commit suicide and I have that ability, right? That's an ability that God lacks, right?
Because in virtue of the fact that he's all powerful and he wouldn't do that, right?
Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he, Danny?
The fact that he's all powerful that he wouldn't do that, right?
Why wouldn't he commit suicide, Danny?
If he was all powerful, if he has all power,
hold on,
that wouldn't tell us what he would or wouldn't do, right?
Yeah, I mean, saying that something is all powerful just because that they wouldn't desire to do the things that they could otherwise do. I mean, then
it's not in virtue of his being all powerful that he wouldn't do it.
Well, when I think of power, I think of maybe it has to do with something with intentions and desires, right? It doesn't. I don't really.
Are you saying that he wouldn't do it or that he couldn't do it?
Well, if he wouldn't do it, then he couldn't do it.
Can't. So you're saying he can't commit suicide?
So what I'm asking is, does he have the ability to do it if he had the desire to do it?
Danny doesn't know. How is he supposed to know that?
Well, I mean, we're just trying to leave aside how preposterous it is that Danny could claim to know what God's properties are. We're just gonna bracket that whole issue and just grant him that the stuff that he pulls out of his ass, actually, should be taken seriously. So go ahead, Danny. Tell us. Is it?
No, I think it's time for me to go to bed. I surrender your way. Okay. y'all clearly understand
Just
this
like
stuff, and I don't. So,
You're doing well, though.
It's like asking about the details of Santa's sleigh. Both are on the same level.
And Jack, you were not here when this conversation started, but I did not.
As if that matters.
Yeah,
does.
as if
It
we
really
have
does.
that.
It definitely doesn't.
No, I did not intend. My only argument here, right, was that if I was being, right, the reason why I spoke in the first place is because I was accused of being disingenuous with my intentions and I don't know exactly I don't know how Ocean phrased it, but the fact that I believe that people were going to hell, that I was acting inappropriately, if considering that I hold that belief, right? That's what
What
all
I was
cared
saying is
about.
that if I trust you as a friend, then I'm trusting somebody that believes that I ought to burn in hell.
Right.
that
was the center
opinion
of the conversation. Right. That was, and I didn't really care whether it was right or wrong. We were just discussing, right? If I hold the belief, how should I act around you? Consider that I have the belief, right? And you're saying,
like I was saying, I can respect Christian Hillbilly for being upfront with me about that.
Right, but you don't.
You, on the other hand, are not upfront about that. With your opinion about people.
First of all, I am very upfront about it, right? I've said it multiple times on the server. I just don't ring a bell every time, I don't remind you every time I hear your voice, and I think that's what you demand, right?
Yeah, you're baiting people into friendship with you and trying to get people to trust you who you think ought to burn in hell.
No. You see, this is why I entered the conversation, Jack. Not because you could be right. Maybe my beliefs are silly, but I'm setting that aside, right? If I hold the beliefs, how should I act considering my Christianity, right? And I think that I should act in such a way where I treat people well, and that might influence.
I agree that it's probably advantageous for you to hide that.
I don't hide it, though. That's not. You're lying at this point.
Tell everybody.
May I interject here, because this is the first time I've agreed with the kid. I personally hold religious views, as but some may or may not know. Let me finish my sentence, and then you can rip it to shreds, okay? And in my personal belief, many people should be hung, drawn, quartered, and left on their family's doorstep. And I don't make any secret of that. And yet I'm still friends with some people that I personally would castrate and throw into the wilderness. I don't see how this is some sort of false thing. I'm still their friend. I just, on a personal religious view, I want to murder them. I don't see the problem with this personally.
I can relate.
Or even like a friend, right?
Well, I wouldn't call you my friend at that point. But
if you have a friend that
I don't see why you would do that.
But you can have a friend that perceives himself as being better than you are, and like they don't need to like mention it constantly, right? I mean, to me, it's synonymous with like believing that a friend is going to go to hell. It's a sense of empowerment that you're not going to go to hell and that person is.
Jesus Christ, your fucking inferiority issues are so fucking apparent.
Man.
So anyway, I was saying I don't think that those are just analogous. So I don't want to see the problem with.
So I want to ask. Jack asked me a lot of questions, so I'll ask him a question. Okay, Jack.
Change the subject.
Do you think that I am being disingenuous or not upfront about my beliefs? That I'm being that I should just say that. Remind you of the belief that I have, that is that you're going to hell, right? Should I press that on you on a daily basis? Like, I mean, and I'm
you're
free. Well, I mean, what are you? Can you phrase it the way it should be phrased?
I was saying is that I have more respect for somebody who's more honest with me about it. I think that the way that you approach it isn't honest.
How else are you expecting
it is now.
To do that? Then I certainly wouldn't want him to tell him every time we hung out that he thought I was going to go to hell.
I think I would have. I think that it's a good warning to have.
I mean, like, I don't think you could hang out with Danny long enough for you not to realize that that's what he believes. Like his religion, his faith is going to come up. Like, it's not a surprise. I don't know what the big deal is.
I love when people talk about heaven and hell and stuff.
But
Jack, like you spent like a year with Danny, and then Danny's like, "Yeah, by the way, this whole time I thought you were working with hell. I didn't really have
I don't know. I had a lot of respect for my religious friends that still do that. Often we have these conversations, and they'll preface it usually by telling me, and that's why I don't want you to go to hell. And I
But
can't.
I mean, but I do. I mean, I don't do it. I mean, I'm not around y'all enough, like to where I don't personally know y'all on a level that I would with like my friends. But I've made my beliefs very, very clear, right? I've professed my Christianity, right? So I don't understand why Ocean would have me take it to that he would have more respect for me if I just made it even more obvious as to what I think as far as the afterlife. Like I think I've made it as. I mean, I guess that's why I entered this conversation.
I just don't understand why people get all friendly and shit with people that they believe ought to burn in hell.
Well, because it doesn't matter.
It's just a very strange idea to me.
It's like personal. It's up to you. I don't believe in heaven or hell. That shit's like a fairy tale, just like anime. But like, if you believe
he doesn't
that's good for him.
have this to believe constantly.
What did you just say about anime?
I saw his One Piece picture, and I'm like,
Ocean, he probably
Sounds
also
more
doesn't
real.
have this belief constantly while he's an actor. I mean, I don't think anybody can have a belief like that constantly while they're interacting.
Well, yeah, I think that it's a dumb belief, and it's probably fairly dishonest, like towards himself too. Like I don't think he actually holds it all either. So I'd agree with you.
I mean,
lots of
but
assertions here.
it's something that whenever someone is going to ask, guess what he's going to state?
That's an assertion.
Hey, Danny, I have a question.
Who is that? I gotta go.
One question.
Well, I mean, of course.
What makes Christianity the right religion? How come
please.
it's not everything else?
Oh, Jesus fucking
Why do you
Christ.
believe? Why do you?
Why are we
personally
starting
believe-
over?
I'm not starting over. I'm asking him personally.
Yeah, this is
Why do
totally
you
starting
believe
over.
that is sense? Why do you
If you're
believe that there
interested-
is a heaven and hell?
Oh, well, if you're interested in a brief, after I'm saying this, I'm not arguing it.
Yeah, that goes back to
I'm leaving. But it's basically Craig's resurrection argument is what's convincing to me. But that and if you can look that up, okay? But I'm leaving for now. Y'all, Ocean, you're going to hell. Okay, bye.
See?
Oh my god! Was that like a temporary?
They can at least appreciate it.
Was that
That's
like
a weird way to say Valhalla.
That
I
is
still don't
hilarious.
understand what the solution would have been.
The
Like
final
wanting to
solution, the only
announce
correct one.
every single time he comes into the room, "Hey guys,
Honestly, I think they were just
the
talking
other
about
solution would have
going
been
to
would be not so.
hell."
No, the other solution is to not be so chummy with him.
I have a question. Was that
Right? He thinks that I ought burn in hell, so I don't want him to
Danny's-
be all fucking smiley with me.
Who
Yeah,
cares?
so I think it's disingenuous for you to be chummy with somebody who you think deserves that, right? Dio isn't chummy with people who he perceives to be Jewish, and maybe Hipster shouldn't be so chummy with people that he thinks deserves eternal hellfire.
Oh, that's all just.
I just think that you guys
A
are
bunch of
used to
crap.
people who believe in that belief, like being mean to you and telling you like all kinds of shit that you're a whoremonger or whatever.
I think your inferiority complex is
I think-
showing.
I don't know why
Also-
you keep saying this crap. So I'll just be quiet, dude.
does the
Also,
server mute only
there's a
last a couple
difference
seconds?
because Danny, like with Christianity, you believe that there's someone, like there's a chance for the person who you're interacting with, whereas with Dio's belief, like with the races, it's like you can't change that. See the difference?
Quick question to Tom. Is the server mute function only temporary, or did you unmute me? Just a question for my other server.
You got to get unmuted.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That was
It's
the first time
permanent
it's
until the
been
mod turns off.
Can you guys send private messages when you have questions like that?
Yeah, I'm not at my keyboard right now. I'm like
Try harder.
10.
You're not
Hey,
server
Pick-
mute
wait,
now.
I'd like to hear this though, because Pickle said he had a problem with JJ.
What?
Who's JJ?
The argument from the lifting the rock.
Oh,
J-
I just brought that up last week, and they were saying like if you're arguing for or to find out if God can't do something by saying he can't do it, like if he lifts a rock or he creates a rock that he can't lift, if the whole purpose of him creating that rock is to not lift it, and then saying why can't you lift it, it kind of like takes you in circles. But they didn't overanalyze it and compare it to what was Danny's example? The car with the muffler and what power is. We didn't take it that deep. It was mainly just me getting shut down at the start for just bringing that up. They said
What?
if God is bound by logic, then why would he be able to lift the rock that's too heavy for him to lift?
Well, apologists have actually evolved the concept of omnipotence into something that's just maximally powerful, not necessarily unlimited power.
Okay.
But I still think if it's an unlimited power that this god has, I don't see why he can't create two realities, one in which the rock is lifted and one in which it isn't.
Oh, that's another way. I never heard anyone say that before.
I don't see the point in that, though.
Oh.
Then he's both lifting it and not lifting it. So he's contradicting it. I thought he couldn't contradict logic. Or I thought he couldn't do contradiction.
No, God can do anything. In fact, God does do everything. That's
yeah. I mean, it's unlimited.
Case closed.
Maximally.
You better believe in him. He can do everything.
Yeah,
Zeus
he's like
can't, though.
Batman, Superman, and like Thor all rolled into one. Fucking stupid Bible.
Well, no, it's like everything all rolled into one. It's more than Batman and Superman.
Is this just like the idea of a god, or is it a specific god?
Oh, I
There's
didn't
only
get to ask.
Christian.
I didn't get to ask my favorite question to troll Christian.
There's only one God, dude.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, definitely multiple gods.
The unchanging God that sacrificed himself.
the immortal, invincible God that killed himself on a cross for our sins.
Oh, that's just a Jesus story, right?
Yeah,
No,
I mean, I believe in Jesus. I don't know about Jesus Christ. If Jesus was a person, I just don't think he could do all that stuff.
Oh, I don't think that Jesus was even a person, or I mean,
I feel like it was a guy.
which Jesus? I don't know which Jesus you're talking about. There's so many Jesuses.
No, I'm just
Wait, we're not talking about Xenu, the true God?
That's what I was saying. It's like there's so many religions, and it's like, oh man, I don't know. Are you just like swamped to the one with the majority of people believing in it? Does that just make it right?
Nope. Not at all.
That's
That's
I think
certainly.
Tom's scared to play
not
diantagonite
it.
again.
No, he's not.
Whatever happened with that? Didn't he owe someone money? Or he owe
Who,
Tom?
Oh yeah, he still owes
Yeah.
someone.
Okay. Because I know he like disappeared for a bit.
But the whole question: can God make a rock so big that not even he can lift it? That's the question we were talking about, right?
Yep.
So that's one concept of God. The God that can just create anything, anytime, and is all powerful. Yeah, and that's a crazy paradox, right? So
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with the question.
No, it's just fun to think about. I mean, isn't that what all religion is?
Who is this pickle person?
What?
Who are you?
I'm the random guy that keeps shooting people down who lives in Southern California. And I hate Ken because of how he talks to other people. That's me.
Well, Ken's a jackass, but I think I recognize your voice. That's why I'm asking, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, I've been around here for a while. I don't know. I don't really hang out here all the time.
What was your name before, though?
It's fun. No, it's always been Pickle.
Really?
Way before the Rick and Morty episode.
I'm Pickle Rick!
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to do it.
No, it's K. I understand.
Spoilers.
When your name turns into a meme. Yeah, spoilers. That's the plot line.
I turned myself into a pickle and 9/11 was an inside job.
9/11 was an inside job.
Did you see the Rick and Morty Old Spice commercial?
Not yet.
It's like 30 seconds. It's great.
No, so Pickle, you didn't come from the politics?
Oh, I was invited to that after I was invited here. I don't know who sent me the invite to this one, but
from intolerant politics, or
it's just politics in all caps. I don't know.
Right, what used to be called intolerant left, and then intolerant politics, and then blah 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 blah. Right.
Yeah.
So you didn't come from there. I thought you were somebody else, man.
Oh no, I'm a random person.
I came from politics, some variety, politics and philosophy, if memory serves.
Yeah, I definitely love hearing all these discussions. I did take a couple of years of philosophy and stuff, so I can sometimes contribute.
This is a fucking cesspool, dude. Most of the discussions in here are just nonsense.
Yeah,
but
I mean, most of them are obviously like, do you want to play with morals or without morals? And
which moral? What?
Oh no,
problems
dude.
in here, I'm saying.
Oh no, dude. One of the problems here was some dude was saying that bullet casings would leave burn marks on a wood floor.
Oh, that's boring. So, what do you mean with morals or without morals? How do you play without morals?
That's what we were discussing a while ago, probably several times. This probably happens when I'm not even here. When the idea of pedophilia and stuff, and like, yeah, you could say it's wrong and bad and stuff, but that's because you're playing with morals. But then you throw morals out the window, and it's just like a physical contact between two humans. What you think of it, what you think of an older person being with a younger person, that's completely on you. I mean, personally, with morals, I think it's wrong. I don't think adults should be messing around with young children. It's just silly. But that's my opinion in the end. I mean, yeah, it's a common one, but it's still an opinion, and it's part of my moral ground as a person. You know?
Well, it all goes back to moral subjectivity at the end of the day.
Yes.
What's moral and immoral to one person can be completely alien to another.
Why do I feel like I've gone back in time?
Are these pickles? Is this... Oh.
So, no, what do you mean by play with morals or without morals?
I'm saying you can choose to be stopped at the question and say, no, that's wrong, or you can hear what the other person's saying and just hear their side. Like, take a step back out of your own opinion, or throw pride out the window type of deal. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's making sense. Okay.
No.
Does anyone else understand what I'm saying?
I think I do. So
yeah,
it's the idea of taking your own morals and completely ignoring them for the sake of discussion.
What?
Just take your morals and completely ignore them for the terms of a discussion.
You know, like making a decision, when you're angry.
How do you ignore your morals?
But like, stop opinionating things. Don't deal with it. I've seen that. It's more like when you make a decision while you're angry, you have to try and make a decision in like a stoic type of mindset. It's like no emotion, no anything, yes or no type. It's hard to. You have to be a robot, I guess. Like, don't. Like, if I said pedophilia, do you think that's wrong or right?
Do I think what?
Pedophilia
is wrong or right?
Yeah, is it when I first say it, what comes to your mind? Do you think that's just wrong, or when I say rape, do you think that's wrong? Right?
What's the point here?
I'm just asking his opinion on this first.
JJ's going to have a hard time answering that question.
Did you just come back, Seth?
I did.
Okay, he was talking about playing with morals or without morals, and I asked him how you play without morals, and he said something about, clarified it as ignoring your morals or going against your moral. I don't know how you can even go against your morals. That doesn't make any sense.
To discuss the question, throw all your opinions, all your pride, and everything out the window, and answer it as if you were a computer, or just discuss the topic without your own personal influence on your answer.
You're talking about disinterested philosophy.
Like, don't let your opinions on ideas stop you from discussing those ideas.
Oh, I don't let my opinions stop me from discussing anything.
Good.
How do you ignore your morals, though?
I don't know, man. I don't want to.
Yeah, it's been explained to you like 4 separate times. If you don't get it at this point, you're just not going to get it.
As far as pedophilia,
I'm saying you can't say something's blatantly wrong.
You have one of the extreme taboos of today's society, whereas in yesteryear it was accepted. It's a case of taking your morality, shoving it in a can, and putting it in the corner.
Yes, thank you. You can't say something's wrong because it's wrong. Like
you say accepted generally, or I mean.
Yes, that's what I said. The societal norm is to look down on it. But you take that, put it in a can, stick it in a corner, and discuss it based on the arguments presented rather than your personal opinion and biases. Yes. And if this is a concept outside of your range of understanding, then that's you.
Yes. Thank you.
You're talking about going against societal norms, then?
No. For the fifth time, what I'm saying is put your morals in a can and put them in the corner. Discuss the subject without your own personal biases in the way. I do it every time I discuss anything here. It's not a difficult concept.
Doesn't sound like you're doing it right now.
No, we're not talking about.
I'm very much so.
Huh?
Making this road very rough.
Yeah, you are just making me explain the same thing several hundred times. Not sure if very bad troll or very stupid person.
Yeah.
Bad troll? I'm insulted.
Well,
so maybe we should start with what you take morality to be.
A subjective system in which you decide whether things are right or wrong, usually based on mass consensus rather than any sort of logic.
And upbringing. Well, mass consensus falls under that, I guess. Or upbringing falls under that. My bad. Other way around. Do you think dogs are cute? Like cute dogs, little small dogs, baby pups.
No, I think they're footballs. Anything that stays the size of a puppy its whole life is a rodent.
I like some dogs. I like that dog.
Why?
That's a nice picture. Why do I like that picture? Why do I like that dog? So that image elicits empathy. I see that those two dogs are happy to touch each other.
What you don't realize is that dog just bit the other one's ear off.
Right? That's very possible. But that's not what I see. Oh, and I'm a big husky. Can't help it.
And there is the very definition of subjectivity, though. You look at a picture and take away one message, someone else looks at it and takes away a very different.
It's very enlightening, yeah. I'm still not sure what you mean. How can you?
I don't think you're going to get it at this point.
And you're never going to understand it. I'm done explaining myself on.
I'm still not sure how you.
With the concept, go fucking Google it. I've had enough of.
No biases. I'm saying. No,
I didn't even finish the sentence.
Okay.
I'm just not sure how you set your morals aside. You ignore.
Do you think eating people is wrong?
What does that have to do with anything?
Do you think eating people is wrong?
No.
Okay. Now, is that based off of something?
What?
Is that based off of anything? Your opinion on eating people?
It might be better to ask.
No, it's not based on anything. Of course it's based on something.
It might be better to ask if things that he actually thinks are wrong are based on something. Because it could be the case that the reason he doesn't think it's wrong to eat people is because he doesn't have an opinion about that particular moral quandary.
No, I think it's just fine to eat people. In some
people
cases.
should eat people.
It ain't wrong, honestly.
Oh yeah, there are cases where you should eat people.
Yeah.
Certainly. There are also cases when you shouldn't eat people.
Right.
So that's why I said,
Tuesdays.
What the fuck are you asking me this question for?
I don't see the problem with saying it's not always wrong to eat people.
It's not. I don't think it is always wrong to eat people. No.
Or whatever you answer, and then why is that?
What?
And why? What drives that answer? What made you say that?
Thinking. Fucking thoughtfulness.
Reason.
Right. So it's not your
Holy
own
shit.
opinion on previously thinking about this, or how other people actually know. Because in society,
what are you talking about?
It's a societal norm to not
He's
eat
a
people, so it's a
fucking pickle.
contradictory.
This is great. JJ's gonna straighten this room out real quick. I can't wait.
Who is
I've
JJ?
just come back from the mountaintop, and I have seen all the clouds, and some bird shat on me.
He's back from the burning bush. So much wiser, older.
Oh yeah.
There's got to be like an easier way of explaining it.
Explaining what? No.
Arguing about morals.
Explaining about arguing about morals.
Discussing a topic without your own biases getting in the way of your answers.
But why is your stance on morality a bias that you shouldn't take into moral philosophical quandaries?
I will tell you this: you cannot escape your biases.
Yes, you can.
No, you totally can.
Please explain.
I did like 5 separate times.
No, he's pulling. He's pulling
biases.
He's pulling.
I really don't understand how one removes their morality from a conversation.
Can someone mute me?
Or why you'd want to?
Can someone mute me?
Yeah, isn't that like part of the point? Is to take that in with you into the moral conversation? Like that's the only thing that you have when you go into a moral conversation.
Right, and having a moral position on a topic doesn't mean that position is biased, except for the fact that you want to argue for the position that you hold, which is true with any philosophical quandary. If you're talking about determinism, right, you have a stance. People usually have a stance on determinism. So should they abandon that when talking about determinism?
And again, the point seems to have escaped you. The point isn't that you always do this in a discussion. The point is that you are capable of doing it. Take your own personal feelings out of any given equation and talk about it purely on its merit. I do it all the time while here. That's why I know it.
Well, I mean, there certainly are a lot of people who think that they do it.
All right.
You say purely on its merit, but how have you determined its merit?
By the points and opinions being raised in any given discussion. Again, as I said, I failed to see how this.
And you don't get more weight. And you'll have to use some sense of morality to determine merits, right?
Which is still a subjective thing.
Yeah. So you still have not escaped your biases or your morality.
I understand why JJ is confused now.
I don't understand why anyone would be confused by this. It seems like one of the easiest subjects in the world to understand.
What is it? Let's start over. Make me understand, buddy.
Nope. I'm not repeating myself for anyone's entertainment. Go fuck yourself.
I'm not. Well, maybe just start with a premise.
Maybe go fuck yourself.
Have a conversation without.
Don't be like that.
This is fucking great.
We're trying not to have so much aggression in this room anymore.
I don't give a fuck.
Don't end it with that. Go fuck yourself. That definitely like stoops you down. Yeah.
I'm good and high now. Let's go.
Yay.
Aren't we all?
Well, I wasn't.
How did